recession. Joining us now to discuss, Florida Republican Congressman Mike Haridopolos. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. So as you heard there, gas prices jumping 9 cents overnight. How much higher do you expect these prices to go?
Well, let's hope they stabilize and eventually go down. That is our goal because, as you know, Boris, since 1979, Iran has been a major thorn, and every president, Republican and Democrat alike, recognized the threat of Iran. Now we actually have their neighbors siding with us, and let's hope we can end this conflict quickly and bring more gas online. And we're going to see a lot of that come online, as you know, Boris, because we're increasing production here in the United States. And, of course, Venezuela is going to start really pumping that gas pretty soon as well. So let's hope that happens. But this is a struggle for all Americans, and why we need to hopefully end this conflict successfully so we can bring down gas prices and, of course, most importantly, bring peace to a region that has not enjoyed it for too long.
It's not just gas prices, as you know, Congressman. Farmers are also struggling because fertilizer costs have spiked. I wonder, as you say that you hope this gets done quickly, how much time you think the administration has to get a deal done before you start to worry about this impacting midterms?
Well, as you just brought up, in 2010, the Democrats had a slight edge as far as, but this is early. You're talking about for the 1st of May. We're going to work on this issue. I think the best politics is good policy, and a good policy is eliminating the threat of Iran around the world. It will eventually bring down gas prices. And you're seeing changes taking place already. As you know, with OPEC, the UAE has decided to say, I've had enough of their policies, and hopefully that'll bring on more gasoline because there is an abundance of gasoline around the world. So that being said, we all want to end this more quickly, but we have to do it on our timetable. The Iranians are a group that killed their own citizens, have killed Americans since 1979 to the thousands, and I want the president to convict this war in such a successful manner that we don't have this threat in our future.
But isn't there sort of a flaw in that idea about a timetable? Because even if the Iranian economy is cratering, their leadership doesn't answer to public opinion. They won't be voted out of office. So is crippling their economy really going to spur a deal if they could just wait this out, especially because to them, this is existential and they're willing to be martyred for their cause? So isn't it likely that they would just wait this out and as you said, continue to repress their own people?
Well, again, it is a challenging situation when you deal with madmen. That's what we're dealing with, literally madmen. Now, President Obama tried to bribe his way into success, meaning they tried to give them so much money they'd come to their senses. They didn't do it. The president has bombed them where they have no Navy. They only deal with drones, etc. Now, let's hope the president can bring an end to this conflict, but do it on our terms. But to your point, Boris, it's a tough one. Again, when you deal with crazy, it's a challenge. But that's why we're going to try to bring on as much oil and as much new things around the world, because that's why we want to diversify the economy. And that's why I think we're going to see a lot of that come from Venezuela and other parts of our nation. So we're more self-reliant as opposed to relying on the Middle East. Because after all, it's the Chinese probably being most dramatically impacted right now because they're so reliant on Iran.
You brought up the Obama administration unfreezing Iran's assets. That reportedly is something that the administration has considered in these negotiations as well, to the tune of some up to $20 billion, I believe. I do wonder if all this ultimately leads to boots on the ground, because I'm not sure that an air campaign is going to get the kind of concessions that you would want from Tehran. Isn't that where this is going?
Well, I think what I understand, and I think you reported on it before, the only way we give them any resources if we extract it, and there's a deal to extract all the nuclear production they've already made. We want to make sure those devices, they can never, of course, attack their neighbors, let alone other folks. And as you know, they've actually fired a missile thousands of miles away into the Indian Ocean that we never thought possible. So they are still a threat. And the only way we'd give them any more resources to help their economy would be if they actually turned over those nuclear materials that they've been creating for years.
On the War Powers Act, the president has 60 days to get authorization from Congress after notifying them of a military operation. It's been 60 days since President Trump told Congress about the war with Iran. Do you think there's going to be a vote on the Iran war? I mean, I imagine that you believe that Congress has the authority to declare war.
Well, as you know, since 1973, the War Powers Act is very clear, 60 days and an additional 30 days. I would not be surprised if we see a vote in the next 30 days. Again, looking at this conflict, it's a legitimate thing for Congress to do. We do have oversight on this. And of course, there'll be an additional 30 days on top of that should a decision be made to move forward or not. But that said, again, I'm optimistic that the president can bring this to a successful conclusion, to reduce the threat in the Middle East, save lives, and of course, long term, bring down gas prices, because that's our goal here. We saw how the Germans, for example, went the other direction, and they're paying a heck of a lot more for energy than we ever have. But it's a real struggle. I think that the person you brought up in the opening of the show is indicative of what's going on. People are struggling, but they also recognize they think this is hopefully a temporary situation to take out this evil regime long term.
So, Congressman, when you hear the president say that the War Powers Act isn't constitutional, what is your response?
Well, that's been what every president says. So we're going to have that debate. And, I respect the checks and balance system because, as you know, Boris, I'm a former history teacher. And I think that we are going to have these type of debates. But we are giving the president the opportunity to do what every president said they wanted to do. And that is to successfully prosecute a war against an evil regime that has killed thousands of their own people. So you can just see that you described very well the regime that knows no bounds. And so we are concerned. My own son's in the United States Air Force, and I fear whatever might happen, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to bring in to the successful conclusion and bring in more energy resources, not just from the Middle East, but around the world, so we can help folks like the person you highlighted at the top of the show.
And Congressman Mike Haridopolos, we have to leave the conversation there. Look forward to the next one.